in front of me, I've got the staff report. Are we going to be doing uh, flag salute or any of that, or are we just starting right into the Board of Adjustment? I mean, the variance hearing.
David, City Council, we did not do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay. All right. Well, that I'm just going to call the meeting of the Board of Adjustment to order. And our first case is a front yard setback encroachment on 102 North Florence Avenue. Is there a staff report?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Ledyard and members of the Board of Adjustment. I do have a staff report. I'm going to go ahead and broadcast my screen here in just a moment. Pam, there's a message box on the Zoom webinar chat. You may see that. It's just, I believe, from the steps. They're online, but we don't see them in the video portion, but they are there. I'm not certain if we're going to broadcast them on the video or if we're going to just listen to them through audio as necessary. I know we're doing kind of a new format. So I'll go ahead and start with the staff presentation. I just want to let you guys know that I got that message. So let me share my screen. All right, here we go. All right, Chair and board members, the request for 102 North Florence Avenue is a request to encroach within the front yard setback of a residence. Currently a 30-foot front yard setback is required. The applicant is requesting a 4-foot extension into the required 30-foot front yard to allow for an extension of their proposed front-facing garage. I think this property will probably come to mind. It came to the July 2nd design review board meeting as the applicant, the homeowner, was interested in getting design review board approval for the site plan elevations and colors and materials for a new proposed garage on a home, on their home. And I can toggle back. I don't want to get into the design review board aspect of it since that's already been reviewed by the design review board. But I just want to let you know that they did come forward with a tandem style garage. You may recall that there was a home on Florence Avenue. You can see it in the area below that at one point had a 2-car garage. That garage was enclosed for livable square footage. What was left in terms of side setback and front yard setback, they brought forward a garage proposal that did a tandem garage, or really it's a 2.5-car garage. And I can bring up the site plan here in just a moment that will show you that. They had hinted at that time that they may be seeking a variance approval from the Board of Adjustment on a future application, which they're here tonight, to give them a little bit more depth for the interior bay of that garage to get 2 full-size vehicles side by side. They can already fit 2 vehicles front to back in a tandem situation. So now, this being said, I will pull up the site plan that I have here, and I'm going to toggle over on my screen share, and you'll see it here in just a moment. All right. I'll wait for the screen to pop up. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Does the site plan pop up? Okay. So this is their hand-drawn sketch. As you can see, this is the street Florence out front here in the front. I don't know if you can see my mouse moving. And then they're showing you the proposed 26-foot front yard. So there'll be a 4-foot reduction. The design review board approved the attached garage addition, but it was mindful of the 30-foot setback at that time. You can see the dimensions noted on here show that the old addition, this addition here was really the enclosed garage at one point. So this is where the old 2-car garage was, at some point years ago, was enclosed for livable. That property since been sold, and the current owners have it. And based on what we've discussed with them, they want a standard, if you will, traditional side-by-side garage option available to them. So to get that accomplished with what dimensions are left on the property, they would need to encroach in the front yard setback. Now you can see in the site plan here, they have this somewhat of a 2.5-car garage. So as I can illustrate it here, you can imagine a car parked in the back of the garage, a car parked behind in the front of the garage. And this 15-foot here is really not large enough for any standard size car. Maybe for the smallest of vehicles, it could park there, but for any medium to large vehicle, it wouldn't fit in there. So the applicant is looking to get a variance approval so that they get additional length. to allow 2 cars, which would ultimately make it a 3-car garage. It's called a 3-car tandem. So I'm going to go ahead and toggle back over to my staff report so we can kind of follow along if you don't mind. All right. So as required with a variance evaluation, we look at 4 findings. One is, we need to understand that are there special circumstances or conditions applying to the land, building, or use referred to in the application which do not apply to other properties in the district, that such special circumstances were not created by the owner or applicant. Authorization of the variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of substantial property rights, and that authorization of the application will not be materially detrimental to persons residing or working in the vicinity, neighborhood, or adjacent properties, public and general. So staff evaluated this starting at the beginning. A lot of times what we look at, we've seen several variances come through the Board of Adjustment in the last several years that relate to properties being built under old codes. And there's a lot of, for example, non-conforming setbacks within the neighborhood to consider, if one house comes in for a variance and everybody on the street has basically the same development standards, we consider that. And in this case, we looked at the street, the North Florence Avenue. It's a north-south street. I have it spun, if you don't mind, just so it would fit on the page so that you could see it and it would fit in the page format. So really north is going to be to your right. North is to your left. But you can see the home placement along the street. And I believe the applicant did note this in their application, that they're aware that the other homes on the street have maintained their historical 30-foot front yard setback. And so staff did check Google Street View and the aerial and verified indeed almost all of the homes have maintained at least the 30-foot front yard setback. There's a home over here that's spun a little bit. It's on a corner lot, so it's a little bit different orientation. So we looked here and we didn't notice that any of the other homes had non-conforming setbacks for which to compare this to. And that all of the homes have a variety of, let's say, vehicle shelter situations, whether they're carports, they're open driveways, they're enclosed garages, but none of them have encroached in the front yard. So with that said, we couldn't find a situation here where we really felt that there was a special circumstance with this home as it compared to other homes in the neighborhood. They've all maintained the setback and they've all provided for shelter vehicles in one form or another. So it's not even just that there's front-facing garages across the board. There's a variety of solutions that are already in place for these homes. Second, staff's been a bit at odds with the kind of philosophy as it applies to variance requests, and that is the 2-car garage that was provided for on this property was done so in a way that it met the neighborhood's required, the zoning district's required setbacks. And that garage was willfully enclosed to create additional livable space. And subsequently, while that was done, there doesn't appear to have been much thought in allowing for another 2-car garage of a similar side-by-side or traditional, if you will, front entry nature to occur on the lot. It couldn't occur in front of the addition of the enclosed old garage. It couldn't occur on the side of it. And hence the tandem solution that was presented to the design review board last month, which still provides for 2 vehicles to be sheltered on lot and an enclosed garage without the need for a variance from the zoning ordinance. So that gets me to the findings that we made or didn't make. We really couldn't find that any special circumstance applied to the land or building. The home was built on a square lot in a typical configuration with a 2-car carport or garage at the time it was constructed. And then that was purposely enclosed to create additional livable space. So I think it would be difficult to define that, at least in my experience with variances, that this really would represent a special circumstance that an owner enclosed their garage, creating a special circumstance. Now, mind you, this was a prior owner a few years ago, not sure exactly how many, but even so, it's not that, for example, that the home was built in 1960 on a lot that's now substandard or non-conforming, or it was built, under a Maricopa County Code prior to 1987 and incorporation. All of the many things that we've considered in the past to try to support equitable development standards across the board for homeowners, we really couldn't make the case here. It's really coming down to the fact that They've got a unique situation. The garage was enclosed. They can only get a tandem on the lot based on what they've got left. They've requested that. They've had it approved, and now they would like something additional beyond what the design review board approved last month. So that said, if we can't make A fit, finding B it becomes not applicable. If you can't find that there's a special circumstance, you can't define that the special circumstance was not created by the current owner. When it comes to understanding whether substantial property rights are preserved for this homeowner and that authorizing the variance would extend those substantial property rights and to be necessary, the home is able to provide for a 2-car enclosed garage, which based on the narrative provided by the applicant is the concern here is that they don't have substantial property rights because they can't provide elements or sun protection to their vehicles. However, their design review board approval virtually guarantees that they can build a garage for 2 vehicles and give it that sun protection, albeit it's not maybe tandem's not considered a traditional means of doing that. So I couldn't find that their request would be required to be authorized for them to substantially enjoy the property. And I come to D, looking at the aerial, looking at the streetscape, seeing that this neighborhood has maintained these 30-foot deep setbacks with kind of these elongated ranch style homes, if you will. This would be the only home on the street that's got a projecting front-facing garage, projecting significantly forward from the front elevation, the front plane of the home, making it unique to the 8 or 10 homes surrounding it. So that said, you know, it's kind of just going to stick out a little bit compared to the other homes on the street and establish a new streetscape. And I just, you know, based on all of these things, we couldn't make the findings. So staff would recommend denial of variance. And we'd be happy to answer any questions on that based on not making the 4 findings.
Do any of the board members have any questions staff concerning the staff report?
No questions.
Okay, hearing none. Is the applicant present?
Right, they're here?
Yes,
Yeah.
Can the applicant state their name for the record, and then they're free to advise the board on whatever they would like to in consideration of their application.
So this is Benjamin Stepp and Cindy Stepp, Cyndie, last name Stepp, Stepp. Obviously, we went through the design and planning committee already and kind of got the 2-car tandem garage as was described there. We were really hoping to be able to do a side-by-side garage. We were unaware when we started this process that there was an 18-foot portion of the property that did not belong to us. That's what forced us to push the drawing back and submit a drawing for only the first 15 feet. When it was brought to our attention, we could apply for a variance. We looked at all the different standards that you had there, tried to answer those questions as best as possible. Now getting to listen to what Jason has said here, I certainly understand where you guys are going from. I will tell you from the perspective of my neighbors, Sarah, Jason, everybody I've talked to in the neighborhood, they didn't seem to have an issue with it, but they don't control what you all do here in this design and planning board or variance board. We were just we have 3 vehicles right now. We have 2 young children. We were really trying to be able to park all 3 vehicles in the garage as we get, going places. We wanted to make sure that it wasn't hot for them. Obviously, this design does not make it prohibitive for us to still continue to park 1 vehicle outside the garage. It was just, we've had 3 cases in the last 2 years where people attempted to break into our vehicles, twice successfully. Our neighbor, Jason, is a Goodyear PD officer, actually got the guy in our backyard. He was arrested and released the next day. So on a security standpoint, we were just trying to make sure that our vehicles could be locked away.
Okay, thank you. Do any of the board members have any questions of the applicant? Okay, well, I have just one question, sir. It was in our materials, but at the time you purchased your house, the old garage was already built in. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions of this applicant? Okay, do any of the board members have any comments at this time?
I have a small comment. I think that you could, even though it's going to be a really short one on the side, it would still accommodate some of the other stuff that a garage normally holds, bicycles and such, and maybe a future very small car would fit in that reduced depth. And then just a comment in general that we've almost never give front yard setback variances. It's very hard where we like to, the purpose of front yard setbacks is for the benefit of the whole city for spatial reasons and aesthetics. And for that reason, it's very rare that we've ever given out any sort of front yard setback variance.
Any other comments? I'll make a further comment. One of the problems that we have is that the elements that Mr. Sanks was reading off on findings that we're required to make if we want to grant a variance under state law. Unfortunately, in this situation, it doesn't meet those requirements. And the Board of Adjustment, we're not supposed to rewrite the zoning code, if you will. That's up to the city council can come in at any time and decide whether they want to change the code. But we have to go, we're not here sitting as a board that can rewrite the city code, only if there's special circumstances. So if there are no special circumstances, then we can't. In my opinion, at least, I don't think we can grant this variance based on the facts before us.
Excuse me, Chair Ledyard, would we want to see if there's anyone from the public that would wish to speak?
Sure. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak?
We could. They can do so. I did not receive any requests to speak before the meeting, which I had asked for. But if someone is attending and wishes to speak, there is the ability to raise your hand via the Zoom. Where is it at? On the bottom?
Yeah, at the bottom of your screen.
On the bottom of your screen. Have we checked? We're not seeing anyone raising their hand at this time. So I would say there are no requests to speak.
Okay. Any other comments from board members or the applicant? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion that someone would like to make?
Sure, I'll make a motion that unfortunately, based off of not meeting the requirements, the 4 requirements, that we deny the application for the variance.
Is there a second?
I would second that.
Okay, Mr. Romack seconds. We have a motion and a second to deny the variance application. All those in favor of denial say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any nays? Okay, hearing no nays, the denial passes. Thank you, sir. I'm sorry we could not help you out, but unfortunately, we're just not in a position to rewrite the zoning code, particularly when the neighborhood is not changed. Sometimes we get, as Mr. Sanks said, we get scenarios where, because of old zoning before we became a town, we get a variety of things that were maybe built previously where we can have some allowances. But in this case, where the entire block is maintaining that 30 foot, it's just very difficult, but thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have, if you want to go, would like to go on to the next item, it's the minutes, possible
Yeah.
approval of the minutes from March 5th.
Yes, can we have a motion to approve the minutes from March 5th?
So moved.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, motion passes. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn the Board of Adjustment?
I'll move.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adjourn the Board of Adjustment. All those in favor say aye.
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 And with that, we will turn the meeting over to Chairman Sarnetsky to go into the design review meeting.
Okay. So, do you want to just continue, Pam? Do you need to change anything?
No, we're good. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and call to order this meeting of the Design Review Board for the City of Litchfield Park. And I guess we'll forego the Pledge of Allegiance since we're not all in the presence of a flag. But so the first item of business are design plans for an addition exterior remodel proposed for 425 Redondo Drive North. Jason, is the applicant present?
Hammer or Thompson? There we go. Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then Jason, would you give the staff report for this project, please?
Certainly, thank you, Chair and board members. I'll go ahead and share my staff report as I did before so the public can also follow along. I just give me 1 second to share my screen. All right. Great, thank you. So the first item on the Design Review Board agenda is a garage and livable addition to an existing residence at 425 Redondo Drive North. The applicant seeking approval for a garage and livable addition to their existing home. I've gone ahead and included an excerpt. I know it's a bit faint, probably on your computer screens. That's just how the resolution came off of the exhibits I had. The rise front elevation shows that over here on the left side of the home, in your full packets, I could pull up the exhibits. I have them in my shared drive here if I can pull them up if you need them. But there's an existing 2-car carport on the left side of the home. Right over here on the right side where you see the 2-bay garage door, that's actually an open existing carport. And then they have columns supporting that covered carport. And they have a little bit of a brick wainscot that matches the existing brick that's on the rest of the home. So in place of that, they'll take those columns down. They're going to enclose that portion of the carport into a garage and then further extend it to have a single bay for a 3rd car garage stall there. Elsewhere in the front of the home, you'll see they're going to do a covered porch entry with new pillars on either side to kind of enhance the front of the home and bring some focus to this relatively long linear mass. They'll bring some focus to it with a front porch cover. And then behind the garage, there's going to be 860 square feet of new livable area that they refer to as guest quarters and a utility room. The elevations note that this addition will include colors and materials to match the existing residence. We'll note that we don't really see any of the brick wainscot carried over to the addition. We've encountered this with other homes. Perhaps the applicant can explain what we found generally, and to speculate perhaps a bit, is that finding brick to match the old brick that's on the house is often difficult. So they try to match other materials on the home so that it does stay consistent, and that them not being able to find brick wouldn't preclude them from getting the addition approved. So that said, based on the application, the exhibits provided by the applicant, we are recommending approval, subject to the standard condition that all colors, building materials, and finishes shall match those of the existing residence.
Okay. Would the applicant like to add anything to Jason's report? Maybe comment on the brick?
Yeah, this is Todd Thompson. I'm the one who put together the drawing set. That was actually one of the considerations that we had about the brick was it is old brick, and matching it would be a problem. But also, we can maintain consistency of material by using a stucco which is similar to what's existing on the home currently, and extending that onto the garage portion, and then throughout the back onto the guest quarters as well. So the material would appear consistent. It would appear as though it were designed, although with an interesting brick veneer on the right-hand side.
Have you made any effort to locate any of the any brick that's, or at least close?
This is, yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, this is Phil Mendoza. I'm the contractor. Yeah, currently we haven't made any moves to locate the exact brick yet, just because we are just in the design phase. We don't really start getting into that portion of it until we've been retained. But our efforts typically take us into the most common areas in the state to locate these bricks. You know, we've been out here for 25 years, so we're quite resourceful. If it's available, we'll find it in a boneyard at the Phoenix Brick or Phoenix Pavers and find what's available to match. And if it doesn't match, as Todd mentioned, we will absolutely match the rest of the house that doesn't have the brick accent. That facade should carry through into the far right side of the house anyway, as that's one of the finishes to the right side of that home. So I don't suspect that's going to be a problem. I feel quite confident that if the brick is not available, that we can still maintain the natural character of the house and the architectural elements that are available to us.
Okay. I was just pointing out that there's a gap, like where the fireplace chimney comes through. On either side of that, there's already a stucco, I'm guessing. So there's a little bit of an offset so that none of the brick would be actually touching if you did a wainscot by the garage side, so that it wouldn't have to be a really precise match, but maybe, as you know, if you could find something pretty close, it might help tie the whole house together.
Yeah, we like I said, we're quite resourceful. So we're confident that if we find something close, we would mock it up and get client's approval, and certainly wouldn't make that move until we knew with absolute confidence that it would only complement the house.
Yeah. Do any other board members have any questions or concerns?
Yes, I do have a question. Am I not seeing in the packet a picture of the front elevation of the house?
So, sorry, I was just going to answer that the image that we're looking at here is the front elevation of the house, and that should be included in the packet.
A photo of the existing home?
We don't have a photo, but I do have an example, another elevation in that packet that also shows what the existing home looks like.
Board Member O'Connor, if you just give me a moment, I can pull that up easily for you. Just give me 1 second. It just takes a second. And it's kind of the nice thing about doing this through Zoom is that I can just do it right now. Okay, 1 second. Oh, wow. The brick is interesting. 1 second. All right, let me know if you don't mind if you can see it.
Yes, I can see it. Yes, that is an interesting brick.
Has it been painted?
No, I believe.
I don't think it's been painted, actually.
I think it's just the natural orange color of the brick.
We proposed changing the front side of the aesthetics of the home to modernize it a little bit, but the homeowners were quite adamant about really retaining the original aesthetics of it. And I don't really disagree. I think up close it looks really good, and with a change of color sometime down the road, if that's what they choose to do with approval, I think anything further would just enhance the aesthetics of the house.
So it looks like there, and from the one of the plans also that's in the packet, there is some brick that's matching that you will be demolishing. Is it possible to reuse some of that?
We talked about that, but we're quite careful not to overpromise to the homeowner that it's salvageable. It just depends on the original construction and whether they built it in a way that really deems it salvageable. And we just don't know until we get into it.
And is it kind of on a cul-de-sac? I see it kind of turning. Is that a cul-de-sac?
It's on a corner of a street. So basically, the street turns 90 degrees. So
It coves is what it does. It's not really a true cul-de-sac.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, I realized I was talking with my mute on. It's called a knuckle. It's where the street bulb's out for the corner. So I think what Board Member Dudley was referring to is the amount of brick that's in this low wall inside the carport.
I think we could just condition this. We can accept. We would like to have the brick veneer go across if it can be salvaged or matched, but understanding that that may not be possible. If everyone's willing to approve it without that condition, but as a stated preference. Does anyone else have any comments on that?
Yeah, Madam Chairman, if I may.
Uh-huh.
I would like to throw out the idea that it's okay if they use a different color block or brick, but they paint it so that it all matches. They may not be able to find this, but I'm thinking that there are some other colors out there that might be more kind of enhancing to the community and to just the aesthetics of the home in general.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have been painting over the old bricks and slump block houses.
Right, we just finished a slump block house. We were able to find the same brick, but in this, I don't know that you're going to be able to find that. And I would argue that, okay, do what you need to do, but then let's paint the whole thing and get a color that is a little bit more pleasing. That's my own personal opinion.
Yeah. Would the applicant have any suggestions?
Yeah, I hate to comment on behalf of the homeowner. It just in the respect that I sense that they really liked the brick. The samples of homes through the entire valley, all the way into Fountain Hills and off Shea Boulevard, that have similar structures and design ideas with their homes and elements. We've transformed homes to look just absolutely drop dead gorgeous. And they came back and looked at their home and go, you know, we really like the character of the brick. So they're trying really not to really change or ruin the integrity of that. And so even painting that brick, they weren't really crazy about. But you know, when they're faced with limited options, I'm sure they're going to do what they need to appease the board, because they're just really in the need of these specific elements to their home with these additions. But again, I just don't feel really comfortable commenting on their behalf with regard to that brick and changing the color of it. I think that they, based on their comments, would prefer to see us match, as it's depicted here in the picture, the greenish color portions that's circled currently with that finish to complete the rest of the house, the additions, rather than try to really piece it together or put bricks in that are similar in size and shape, and then paint all the brick. They're not real crazy about that from what I gathered. So I hate to comment on that about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible just to paint the new brick to match the old. You can color match pretty closely.
Yeah, the tough thing, and I think Jason's got, if I remember Jason from previous meetings with building experience, it's really tough to match a patina of an existing brick like that. We've even done it with roofs where roof tiles have been discontinued, and then you try to paint to match. And it's a tough thing to accomplish, and oftentimes really renders the entire project to take a turn that most people didn't want to do, and that is to paint the entire brick structure.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, we're not shy about putting effort toward really aesthetically making things work. I mean, our business is built on a 10-year warranty program because we don't cut corners. We do things exactly the way we're supposed to. So yeah, I'm with you guys. I love the idea of matching the brick and carrying that to the left side, and we'll make every effort to do that. I'm just a little leery about finding that exact brick and being able to do that. I think our best shot is, quite frankly, to salvage the brick that's under the carport at the moment. And there's a good chance we may be able to do that.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter, I think what we're seeing is that it looks off balanced when all one side is kind of has the weight of the brick and then the other side does not have anything to kind of tie it together.
Right.
It looks a little off balance on the elevation. I think that's why we're trying to figure out a way to get some of that tone on the addition part, and just how that can be done is not kind of part of our job there.
We could
Excuse
certainly.
me, Chair.
Yes.
When you're ready, we have a member of the public that would like to comment if you'd like.
Okay, if they state their name and go ahead.
Okay. It's Paul Faith.
He needs to unmute himself.
I've got no comments if you're looking for me. I'm just watching.
Oh. Oh.
Great.
Sorry.
Your hand got raised somehow.
Sorry about
Well,
that.
I was thinking we had a sleeper that was contending here for something.
Okay, sorry.
All right, are there any other comments from the board members? Or?
I do have a comment, Madam Chair. I just want to confirm, is the homeowner's not on the call?
They are not.
Okay. What's the material going to be used for the new gable over the front door?
It's going to be the same stucco finish that's going to be on the rest of the areas that do not have stone brick veneer.
Got it. And it's columns.
Correct.
Okay. My opinion is I agree, Madam Chair. Normally, I would want to see some brick carried over on the other side, based off the fact that the homeowner likes their current brick, which, they have every right to. I would suggest not putting in any of that, even if they found that brick on the other side. But that's just my opinion.
Okay. Any other members have any comments?
Just simply to say that we can definitely continue that wainscoting across the bottom, probably with the amount of brick that exists in that carport area. It would terminate, of course, as it finished the front elevation. We wouldn't continue it around the side, but it would just maintain the bottom.
Continue it across the wainscoting and then just wrap it around the corner for a little while and then terminate it. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
So I guess I just would say also that I agree that it just seems a little off balance, and I wonder if maybe maybe if maybe the weight could be changed a little bit if the garage door was possibly a little darker, or the material of the garage door could help with the visual weight of that to satisfy the out of balanceness of just heavy brick on one side, and then, you know, if it's all light color on the other side. Just a thought.
All right, well, let's come up with a motion to approve with stipulations or conditions, or as presented. So
this is Brian. I'd make a motion that we approve the application as presented by Mr. Stanks, and we approve it as is.
Okay. You have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I think I would just add the recommendations that we've been speaking of, but not make it a condition of approval. Any other discussion? Okay. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, it'll pass as presented with just a recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, I lost my agenda. Oop. Okay. Next up is the design plans for an addition exterior remodel proposed for 14912 West Aldea. And this is to put it, let's see where am I? Okay. Is the applicant here?
Oh. No, it seems like they're not here.
Jason, this was kind of a matter of fact trellis. I don't know if we're allowed to continue without the applicant, or.
Well, I think we've kind of discussed this before, in particular for projects that are a concern. You know, we usually continue the item to the next board member hearing to allow the owner or the applicant to show up. In this case, you know, I don't know if there's a specific code prohibition to keep you from acting. I think it would be at your discretion. The staff is making a recommendation for approval of the item, but I think it'll get to the board.
Okay. Do any of the board members have any concerns about approving without the applicant present?
It's not a concern, but I would say that this is kind of, I'm going to call it a slam dunk, but these are issues that we've approved in the past, seemingly, and without any particular discussion or disagreement. So I would say that we just move ahead and get this passed and approved.
Okay. Would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'd make a motion that I don't have the address. I don't.
Board Member Romek, it's 14912 Aldea Drive North.
14912 Aldea Drive North. I move we approve the modifications as submitted.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. The next up is design plans for an addition exterior remodel proposed for 230 Cercato Lane. Is the applicant present?
Present.
Okay, thank you. And then Jason, would you give your review, please?
Certainly, thank you, Chair and board members. The proposals for a garage addition to an existing residence at 230 Circata Lane. I'm going to kind of talk through the staff report. We've received some additional exhibits and clarification as of this afternoon that will adjust some of the language in the staff report, if you will. So let me get to the report and then I'll kind of clarify what we received later today. So the proposals for an attached garage, you can see it's a front-facing, somewhat, I believe, single-car garage to be on the right side of the residence. What you're looking at here in the middle of your screen is actually the side of the side entry garage, which you can't see the door, but there's one over here. So this driveway comes in and it would tee off to the left to go into the existing garage, or you could continue forward into the newly proposed garage. What's unique in your plans that are going to be in your packet is that if you kind of looked at the report and looked at particularly the floor plan, it says something noting a kennel with the location of a few safes or something that were located in the room. And I had to try to figure out if there was a different meaning for the word kennel other than the kennel that I think of in terms of what's listed in the land use matrix of the zoning ordinance, which is where you would store, where someone would run perhaps even a business storing people's pets or boarding pets. As you probably know, commercial dog boarding or kennels are not allowed in residential zoning districts in the city. They're only allowed primarily, I believe, in industrial districts due to the type of use that would be, the type of noise it would cause, the type of commercial traffic that occurs, and then these pets would need places to relieve themselves, which wouldn't be appropriate in a neighborhood unless it was their own personal pets. So that was one item that kind of confused us a little bit with the review. The second part is if you look in your packet, the site plan in your packet shows a hand-drawn modification because the garage that you see here, particularly, let me use my favorite annotation device right here, appeared to be extending into the required side yard setback. And so a little confusion for staff was, okay, so you've hand-drawn a modification on your site plan saying you're going to shave off several feet of this garage, but it doesn't appear based on scale that the elevations had been modified to accommodate that. So I wasn't certain if even a single car garage door would be left that could fit in what's left of that garage once they kind of manually chopped off several feet of the new proposed addition. So that said, I'd kind of like to pull up, if you don't mind 1 second for me to pull up the, hold on 1 second. I'm going to pull up the design review for it and see if we can kind of figure out what I can do here for you guys to show it to you. It's from today. There it is. All right. I'm going to do a new share. I'm going to bring up these design plans, okay? All right, so these are building sets. These are general architectural notes. That's not really what I'm going to show you. I'm just going to wait for them to load. All right, so this kind of gives you a nice depiction of what we're looking at. I'm going to need the applicant to please clarify some things for me, since there seems to have been in the past a couple of maybe technical errors in regards to how setbacks are depicted on the property. So this home is required to have a 15-foot side yard setback. It's not the place of the board to determine, this is the design review board, there's no purview in your ability to approve additions that don't meet zoning code development standards, right? So on this site plan, which I received today, it shows right here, this 15-foot side yard setback line, right? But then I look down here and it says 15-foot side yard setback that extends here to this dashed line, right? So one says it's 15 feet, the other one says it's 15 feet. So I'm not 100% sure of which one's the 15 foot. If this dashed inside line is in fact the 15-foot side yard setback, this garage could not be approved as shown. Because you'd have to chop off this area that's occurring here. Let me just do this one more time. Kind of look for the annotation. Here we go. So right here, what you've got here is, I'll just use my mouse. This whole strip right here in between these two lines would appear to be in the side yard setback. So, you know, I'm not certain, I don't believe that the board could make a recommendation on any design plans that show that the proposal is not in keeping with the development standards of the ordinance. In that said, you can see clearly here that it would also cut right into where the front and rear garage doors are proposed. You can see here, door, here, a door. So that said, staff didn't have a recommendation on this. We couldn't really make a recommendation for approval based because it depicted a kennel use, which isn't allowed in residential districts. And it appeared that the proposal was in the side yard setback. So that said, we'd certainly not recommending approval as filed. And we would ask that the applicant clarify what they meant with their design plans.
Okay.
Thank you, Jason. The applicant like to address some of the staff concerns on your application?
Sure, absolutely. So as far as, I'll address the kennel first. So as far as the kennel is concerned, the purpose of labeling that as a kennel was it's not a kennel at all, actually. It's a safe. So with these plans going out to subcontractors, the last thing I wanted to do is put on note, hey guys, I'm building a big safe. So obviously there's going to be a reason to put something in there to protect. So I instructed the designer to label it as such. I spoke with Pam earlier, and she and I said, okay, well, it's not called a kennel, it's called storage, right? I don't want to call it a safe. Obviously, you can see the construction of it is built in such that it is extremely secure, and it'll have valuables in it, obviously. So, but I didn't want to publicize that out when we put these documents to the public as far as for pricing. So not knowing the restrictions on the kennel, I said, hey, let's just call it a kennel, right? And we'll put a doggy door, and it'll be where the dogs can get in out of the outside and just get into an air-conditioned space. But the real intentions of that is that will be a full constructed vault safe for storing valuables in. As far as the encroachment into the setbacks concerned, there was a contradiction in the design and the setbacks that were pulled originally on the piece of property. As you can see, the house sits on the lot on, let's call it a cant or an angle. So originally the thought was that the setback on the side yard could be, was a 10-foot setback off of the property line. And then later on with conversations with Pam, it arose that it was a 15-foot setback. So if you look down and you go down to a little lower on the page, you'll see that what we did is we added a note onto the plan, and that's why it was last minute that it came in. And we put a note in there, this dimension to be verified in the field. So prior to obviously putting it in for construction documents for a permit, we'll have to verify that setback there on the side, which potentially could impact the width of that front garage door, which currently I think shows at 14 foot wide. So, but in hopes of keeping it on the docket for this evening, we added that note on there for it to be verified in the field. And obviously, once we verify that dimension, there may be the width of that garage door could go from a 14-foot down to the standard 8-foot single car garage door, which would then give the room for that garage to sit as such to be able to make it still a single car garage. So I was more looking at the elevation, tying it into the current piece of property, staying on the design review docket so that we could then validate that setback. What does the encroachment do? And really the impact is less to anything other than the width of that 14-foot wide garage door at this particular point as shown on the drawings. It could reduce down all the way to the 8-foot garage door, which is your standard single car garage door, 8 or 10 foot, and still get the same look and get it out of that easement if there is one, if it is encroached.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do any board members have any questions for the applicant or for staff?
Yeah, Jason, I have a question. Do we have a picture of the front elevation on this one also? I'm just curious about the, I just like to see it because the addition, I noticed is a flat roof, and I guess you have the flat roof porch that kind of is mirrored there, but I'm just curious about that roof line choice.
Certainly, I'll pull it up right now.
I'll speak, Jason, if you don't mind while you're pulling it up. It does have a parapet. So
Right.
the intention of the parapet on that side is you'll notice that the entryway, when Jason pulls up the photo, is a parapet style entryway as well. And then on the further to the left side or to the west side of the property, that has the parapet as well. So putting the parapet on this side of the property, in my opinion, actually ties and balances the property out as a whole. And you'll see that when Jason pulls that
Okay.
elevate picture up.
Thank you.
This isn't it. Hold on one second. I don't think I'm at the right house. All right. Which direction am I going here? Let's see. 1 second to find 205. Looks like I'm looking at 185.
It's 230.
230.
Oh, no wonder. I'm trying to Google the wrong place. Sorry about that, guys.
That's all right.
All right. There we go. This will work. Let's go to Street View. I feel like we've seen this before. This leaves the home. So let me get in here. Oh, something's moving here. See if I can sneak in here. Here we go. There we go. Can everybody see that okay, or am I not? Oh, I think I need to screen share properly. Give me 1 second. All right. Board Member Dudley, are you able to see that?
Yeah, yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Can you go like more towards like
Go to
the front?
Yeah. Opposite side.
Oh, opposite side? Okay.
You gotta get around that tree.
You know, there's a lot of stuff going on here. Here we go.
So there's the parapet at the entryway. And then if you go a little further, you'll see there's a parapet to the other side. If you go a little closer to Castan, right there. So it ties the parapet elevation there, entryway, and then on the garage side, then that would truly, in my opinion, balance that property out as far as the parapet tying in with the new roof and all that.
Yeah, okay, I agree. Thank you for showing me that photo. It makes it more clear for me. So it looks like you're matching that top detail and everything. So
yes, ma'am. Elevation as well. So same height, everything.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Bearing in mind that the dimensions are going to change, proportions will change a little bit too, but I think even doing the top of this parapet's below the ridge line of the tile section.
I mean, actually, if you look at, so we have two different ridge elevations. If you look at the front of the house, which is difficult to see from that photo, but the ridge line that runs the main span of the house, you'll see where that parapet on the entryway ties in exactly at the peak of that ridge. So it doesn't stick up on the backside of the property. So it would mirror that same height.
Okay.
So it would not exceed the height of the ridge, just because cosmetically, I think that doesn't look appealing to me. So yeah. I was thinking we keep it below that ridge line. And Jason, if you can scan back around to the garage side, if you don't mind, again, the existing garage, my neighbor's moving in. You can see there behind the garage, you'll see where the mud room and the existing laundry room is parapet as well. It's tucked around the corner, so you really can't see it there. But if you look to the left of the RV gate, a little bit further past the garage, there's a parapet there. That's the elevation, which is the exact same height that the garage would be as well. So it ties into that existing structure. And then during the construction, we would use that, that elevation and that would be the bearing point for one side of the garage. So it would just really enhance that. You just can't see it from this photo. You have to really be up on the driveway to see the elevation up in there. Oh, there you go. Do you see it back in there?
Yeah. Okay, but with that in mind, I don't know if we can propose a motion to approve with conditions that the side yard setback will be, of course, part of the approval process with the city. Would any other board member like to make a motion, or do you have any questions? Anybody there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I'll-
guess it's just, this is Brian. I mean, it's challenging to try to make a motion to approve something that we don't know if it's going to fit. So, I mean, right? I mean, it looks like I'm looking at the aerial. It looks like a single garage would fit, but I don't. From looking at the aerial, I don't see how a bigger garage is going to fit on there. And of course, it's just the aerial photo, so that's.
Yeah, I think the only other thing we could do is continue until we know for sure. I mean, I think that the design concept is fine, but we don't have the proportions of it. But I think I can visualize chopping down that 14-foot door to an 8-foot door, and I think it still would look all right.
It would match. It would match the same garage door. It would match the same elevation as a whole. So as far as the design intent of that would still all tie within the property.
Yeah, I personally, I have no problem with the intent of the design as well. I would do the same thing as far as design on it. So I would suggest tabling it so we can. I'd hate to not approve something that I think most likely would approve if it was down to the single, or if we knew it fit.
Does any other board member have an idea for handling this item?
Brian, are you making that as a motion?
No, I think I was just sharing more as a comment. But you can move my comment.
I would like to come back. I'd like to postpone this and have them come back to us with some sort of revisions on their drawings. I don't think that we should allow that it should go to staff. That I think it needs to come back to us as a board, and so that would be my motion.
Okay, so a motion to continue to the September 3rd meeting.
I'll second it.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. It'll be continued at our next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, next up. Is the design plans for an addition exterior remodel proposed for the Tierra Verde Downtown Center located between Wigwam Boulevard and Honeysuckle Avenue on Old Litchfield Road. The applicant present.
Yes, sorry. Yes, I'm still here.
Oh, are you this project also?
I am, and the next one.
Oh. Is there a next one?
Welcome back.
Thank you. Hopefully we can have a little more success with this one.
Okay. Jason, would you give us your report, please?
Sure. Thank you, Chair and board members, and to the applicant. Apologize for a little bit of background noise. I have a little commotion outside of my office here. So I'm going to go ahead and present. This is an expansion request for the downtown center. You've got a packet that has several exhibits in it, includes both kind of an overall site plan of the center, may include a floor plan of what is now called New Building 5, Indoor Outdoor Dining. And then I think the initial premise for the application was to provide a newly expanded space for the TCBC Brewery. And so I'm going to have to use my drawing tool, if you don't mind, since I'm going to get at this, to kind of show some items here. So you can see here that we have the, let me zoom in a little bit. One second. You'll see the new addition commercial office space in the center of the screen. That currently doesn't exist today. That is a space between buildings 3 and 4. Let me see if I can pull up. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and pull up the exhibits from that Pam and I shared on this. If you don't mind just one moment, and I will show you what I've got here for this. Okay. No, give me one second. So there's a couple things that are occurring here. It's going to be not only a new home for the TCBC brewery, but it appears there's going to be an approximately 5,000 square foot new spec building. And I will see what I can pull up here for you guys. All right, well, I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen so you can see the floor plan while I look for the screenshot. If I need to, I'm just going to Google Street View it for you so you can see that while I share. All right, so you should be able to see the new floor plan here. Maybe I'll have the applicant elaborate between what's for TCBC, what's a spec building, and what other improvements are they proposing. So this is an exciting development. The property is actually zone neighborhood commercial. It's downtown with the PD, but it's not in the city center zoning district. That said, it is across the street from the city center zoning district, which has very specific design guidelines. So we kind of use this as a reference to make sure that what's occurring across the street as an extension of the existing downtown center more or less, maintains and respects the development form that's already established in the downtown area. So I'm going to go back to my staff report, if you don't mind. Okay, here we go. And talk about the streetscape. So over here on the right-hand side of the screen, you're going to see existing building number 2. That's the existing downtown center building that fronts on Old Litchfield Road over here on the right side of the site plan. You can see the existing patio covers wrap that immediate corner over on this side. And then as you extend down West Honeysuckle, you will see an existing covered breezeway. You'll see some existing office space. You know the 2 office buildings that have the canopy awnings? They don't really match the older existing building 2 building. But what's proposed is the new building 5 over here on the other end, if you will, the bookend of West Honeysuckle. That will replicate the same architecture as the buildings along Old Litchfield Road. Now, the buildings in the center, which currently have are currently 2 separate buildings, are intended to be joined in the middle, and I'll show you what that will look like. So if you look down here on the front elevation facing the street, what you've got is both sides of the front elevation facing north, if you can see right here, that will be joined with a new building in the middle that will connect them all, so it'll appear as a continuous facade. And if you look down below inside, you can see a recessed patio. And so there's an intention to have a recessed building area or courtyard facing out to Honeysuckle. As you extend to the west and to your right of the screen, as you go to the right is the west, you will see the more historic appearing, or I would say the replicating the architecture along Old Litchfield Road. You'll see the arched covered pathway corridor effect with, again, the same kind of flush storefront roof behind it. And then this would be the proposed restaurant building. And again, I'll let the applicant perhaps elaborate on if they've got a prospective user for that. I'm not aware of any prospective users just yet. So that's what we were tasked with evaluating. This is, in staff's opinion, a very important project. It would be the first significant step of development in the downtown area for new build in quite some time. So that said, we've gone and looked at what's proposed and how does it kind of line up with the city center design guidelines that Council Design Review Board reviewed and made recommendations on, and ultimately with the city center zoning district, where we're taken to the public, taken to P&Z and Council and adopted. So things that we like to watch for with downtown development are maintaining a minimal, if preferably a 0-foot setback from the adjacent right-of-way. So as you look here where the private property meets the road, that is West Honeysuckle Street, we want to see that we can bring buildings to the street to encourage that pedestrian friendly environment so that if people are on Honeysuckle or walking downtown, they're not having to traverse across typical suburban format parking fields. Rather, the storefront entrances and the windows and the bustle of downtown is right there at the curb line and at the sidewalk line. And this proposal, generally in design, meets that design intent to continue the fabric of downtown. As we've said before, imagine that downtown is a continuous quilt that's being stitched out over many, many years, and we're just adding to the seams. And if you look from what's existing to the right and going to the left, we're keeping that quilt intact, right? So we'd like to provide shaded patios and sidewalk corridors along the streetscape to provide some shelter from the elements, particularly the sun, and provide little alcoves for places to maybe stand, sit and rest, or if there's outdoor patios, they can enjoy a meal or a coffee and meet one another downtown in the type of environment you'd expect downtown. Outdoor dining patios that bring social and commercial activities to the public domain and provide an engaging and effective, festive outdoor or downtown environment. We're finding that that is also being provided for with these plans, with the proposed recess over here in the center of between buildings 2 and 3 with an outdoor patio, and then the extension of a wraparound covered patio on the new building 5. Again, in continuity of relatively low building height, they're matching similar scale and wall plane relief as the existing architecture downtown. That will help maintain a sense of cohesive identity as we build out along the streetscape. So some critical downtown components that we should look for and that could help add to this proposal. And I believe the applicant can talk about how they wish to proceed. I think there's going to be some more details that need to be provided, particularly since this project is downtown, it's in the city center, and really is a critical component of the downtown. We'd recommend consideration of some sort of small form landscaping, perhaps that's large potted trees or shrubs or something to break up the somewhat sterile streetscape that starts to occur in front of buildings 2 and 3, where it's just paving and building storefronts and not a lot of softscape. You have a little bit of grass, which I'll bring up in a moment on the Google Street View, where that occurs between the curb and the sidewalk. But once you get to the building, there's not a whole lot of texture occurring there. There's not a whole lot of shade, except for a couple of the canopies that are mounted on the front of the building. So we would like to see that environment softened up a bit. Maybe have the applicant consider replacement of those thin awnings that are on those relatively simple buildings with something more structural, something with a little bit more heft, if you will. And the idea would be to provide shade and also break the flat wall plane with some of more richer, more textured mix of building materials. We'll have the applicant comment as well. If you're going to provide a recessed patio feature on the front of the new commercial space between buildings 2 and 3, you may wish to provide and replicate the arches that are occurring over here on building 5. Is there any way to bring the arch relief elements into buildings 2 and 3 to kind of tie it together, so it's not just tucked in under the roof line? The patio railings, I think, will need more explanation. There's not currently nearly as much patio railing as shown on the plan as exists out in the field. I think it's just in front of the brewery that's there now. We would love the idea of the patio railing. Provides a little bit of sense of delineation of space between pedestrian traffic in front of the buildings and perhaps the areas where people would sit at outdoor tables and enjoying a meal or a coffee, or in the case of the brewery, perhaps a beer. The thing we look for when we looked at the city center design guidelines is when you're providing a low metal paneled fence, you really should try to look at substantial column treatments or other things to provide a sense of permanency and make it look established rather than what would be the equivalent of a pool fence bolted into the concrete. You'd want to see some elements that really anchor that fence down so it looks more substantial. The buildings should have a bit more detail in regards to their decorative lighting elements. Are there going to be pedestrian area light poles that illuminate the patios? What kind of lighting details are going to be on the buildings? Certainly you want softer architectural style lighting. You wouldn't want wall packs or anything that would be more garish, like security lighting. Those are the sorts of things we kind of like to see to ensure that the pedestrian scale of the downtown area is continually captured as just that. It's not a heavy vehicular area, heavy vehicular traffic area, but rather how can we make this area more comfortable for pedestrians? We would recommend the applicant look at perhaps some forms of street furniture in front of the buildings, whether it's just as simple as a bench or seat blocks or other things that are typically found in commercial centers. You can find them at Litchfield Marketplace, sprinkled about in front of the storefronts, just places for people to momentarily pause, take a seat, watch people walk by, wait for a store to open, wait to get a ride pickup from an Uber. Those sorts of things should be generally provided in an urban form downtown streetscape. So these are all really lots of ideas I just wanted to share with the applicant. And again, not picking on the design plans, but more so saying this is great that we have development coming downtown. They've respected the core of the design concepts of buildings to the street, shaded areas, outdoor patios, etc. And our hope would be that this item would be reviewed tonight without a recommendation for staff on an up or down, but to take it forward to September and ask that they provide some additional details to think it through as to how can they meet items 1 through 8, and not to be limited to that, but at least provide additional details so that we can validate 1 through 8 can be reasonably met. So that said, we do recommend a continuance of the item for this. It's really a work in progress. And that said, I don't think it's quite ready for a motion for approval or denial.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Do any of the board members disagree with that, or you want to move forward, or would someone like to propose a motion to continue this to our next meeting?
I have a question.
Yes.
Are we removing the tea shop there that's right on the corner of Honeysuckle?
Would the applicant like to answer that?
Sure, absolutely. Yes, the tea shop, the little freestanding mobile home there is being removed for the new restaurant pad.
Okay. First of all, Jason, good job. Boy, that was a very thorough report.
Sorry if I gave you an earful. I just felt it was my job in the city center.
we got the report for the EPS's drawings for the park in the new city center, and it's quite involved and very, very exciting to thinking about this coming into our little community. And I encourage this kind of development in our city, but I think that you've kind of grabbed a hold of the new designs and are asking this property owner to relate it more to our new downtown area. And I think that you're to be commended for that. And I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I think I agree. Right. Would someone like to propose a motion to continue, or is there any other opinion?
If you wouldn't mind, am I able to speak to it? Because I think we're melding multiple projects that were submitted for separate submittals into a single review. So if I could speak to it just a little bit, I think you guys can see how one of these particularly should be broken out of this as a single motion. So bear with me as I try to speak to it. So there's a lot of moving pieces going on over here as far as the tenants and where they're moving and the relocation and that type of thing. So there was a submittal for TCBC. TCBC is the brewery that sits in that existing building 4 in the eastern wall cap or eastern end cap of that building. TCBC is moving into the Litchfield CrossFit building. Their lease is up at the end of this month and they'll be moving out. So the relocation of TCBC, there was a submittal actually, in fact, for TCBC in itself. TCBC will take that 4,000 square foot building there we're calling building 3. And that will be the brewery. Then they'll have their outdoor beer garden. So there was an elevation that was submitted for that project. That is the eastern project of that building's, the eastern facing wall. So the wall facing the backside of Papa Paul's of the CrossFit building. So So Pam, did you get the elevation that we had sent for TCBC, the CrossFit building that shows the roll-up door and the service window and the additional man door that faces the backside of Papa Paul's towards that breezeway?
Yeah.
under the-
That's the last part of the
That
application.
one.
Yeah.
So that is the east-facing side of the CrossFit building. So TCBC is going into this building, and you saw the layout of the interior build-out. That's inside the CrossFit building. So that breezeway right there, that right side of that building is that elevation picture that we submitted. So they're wanting to cut a roll-up door. They're putting an additional man door in, and they're putting a service door in, and then they're fencing off that courtyard breezeway area, and that's going to become an outdoor, let's call it beer garden. So that'll be for outdoor seating. The brewery will have open, similar to those roll-up glass doors that are on the front of Papa Paul's. Same concept there. They'll open up to that area, and then it'll be an outdoor area for sitting and fenced off. So that was one submittal that was submitted for that review, for that elevation. The second submittal was the new additional buildings. There was some method to the madness on the new buildings. So I'll speak to those. One is that particular building, removing that piece of building from the corner of the property and then building a new freestanding. There is a proposed restaurant that is proposing on that site, but unfortunately I have a non-disclosure. So at this point in time, I can't disclose the restaurant that will be going into that new building there. But that building will have, which it wasn't represented, I want to say the patio cover on it is, that building's going to have a 2,437 square foot outdoor sitting patio under the cover. It's on another one of the paid plans that were submitted for this submittal. One of the reasons for the infill of that particular building, where we tied the two structures together, and the purpose of setting it back, if I could speak to those. So the property owner is going to bring a fire sprinkler system into that complex, because currently today there is no fire protection within that structure. So with tying the structures together, because I'll talk big picture, right? So from Park Cafe to LP to Old Pueblo, there's a breezeway that touches the structure on both sides and ties that. That's where that bar is, where Peter's Bar is, where the breezeway ties together. And then you go right into the barber shop, and then the attorney's office, and then the martial arts, and then my office, and then Papa Paul's on the corner. The concept is the way with fire sprinkler, you could bring a single fire riser in, and as long as the buildings are touching one another, you could run a single point, do what's called a Class A fire sprinkler system, so that he'd be able to run a single riser and sprinkle all these structures. There's a couple concerns with that. The reason he's filling that in is it's a blind corner. Kids ride their bikes up and down that sidewalk all the time. And when cars pull out past the CrossFit, they can't see past that corner. And the minute you're past the corner, you're in the driveway. So the concept about filling that would do a couple folds, would give the ability to fire sprinkler the structures. It would then also eliminate a drive lane there. We met with the city earlier on, and part of the master plan was that along Honeysuckle, that will be parallel parking. So that curb line, as you sit today, is going to actually recess in 7 feet, and there'll be parallel car parking that runs along Honeysuckle. And that's part of that city center master plan community or a plan. So that's why the building was tucked back in order to get a patio. Because if we would have done a patio structure out, it would have encroached the potential ability to parallel park along Honeysuckle, which was one of the city manager's requests, that they wanted to look at and thinking about doing that. So there's a lot of real positives that go along with it. And we took into account in the design such, Because the last thing I want to do is show you guys a big, beautiful patio that sticks out the front with big exposed beams and all that stuff. And then you want to come in and tear it down because you're going to parallel park along that side of that street for that master community. So we set it back that way, still tying in the elements. We want to use the heavy beams, the heavy timbers. So you'll still have that element across the front facade. And it's really hard to depict that through elevations, but that was the intentions there, really carrying that same facade, breaking it up elevation wise with giving a setback. So you don't have this massive wall across that parapet, you know, with elevation, it sets back in a touch. And then tying the corner in again as across the front facade with the arches. The owner felt like it may be a little too many arches if we just start going crazy and add arches already. And he already feels the front of the property is pretty heavy in arch as well. That's why they broke and stopped the arches like in front of Martial Arts and in front of my office as well. So they don't carry it all the way around. They start and stop and break up that architectural flow to really give it elevation across it. So that in a nutshell is really the intentions here. And you know, our opinion that really enhances that and finishes off really that old historic block. So that's it really. Sorry, Jason, that was an earful.
Oh, no, thank you. And from the staff perspective, I think what we're trying to convey here is that we've received an assortment of application pieces, right? We've got the items related to the proposed expansion or the relocation of the TCBC brewery to the building 3, and then building 3 subsequently will need a modification with the roll-up door, which has certainly been in vogue for some time, so you can have an indoor-outdoor patio space regardless of season. You know, really ultimately the broader concept of everything that's proposed is great and in keeping with I would say the true bones of what we're looking to do downtown. What we'd like to do is provide guidance to the applicant to continue on with where they've gotten to. And then if they can go ahead and take some of the refinements and the design level details to the next level, just to kind of reaffirm those expectations that we've made to the public specifically about what we hope to do and accomplish in collaboration with these developers downtown. And that is, you know, we'll just take it to the next level, have your architect prepare these finer details. What we don't want to see happen is we're not going to have more conceptual or vague plans, go to the design review board, and then everything just happens in front of Mary over at the building department. It's the design review board and the city council have established expectations for many years now that we've worked on city center and downtown development in general, that we will be looking at these details. It is a highly pedestrian environment. It's going to build out as such. There's a lot of hope and expectations associated with it. So, you know, things like all of the items that I listed 1 through 8 would be a really solid start. And if we can collaborate with the applicant through the next few weeks to see if they can kind of roll in those details, I think you'll have a more robust application, or perhaps 2 applications if we bisect them for the purposes of them standing alone. We could bring it back on September 3rd. Our intention, and I made this clear with Pam, was not to in any way preclude or deny or delay development downtown. It's exciting, but rather provide the guidance that we're required to, and we've been told to do by council and public. So that's where you get the comments today. And we just want to help facilitate, make this happen.
And I appreciate that. So again, I guess I'll revert back to the TCBC elevation on that one side of the building to be able to move so they're doing exterior modifications. So we have a full set of CDs that have to be submitted to the city to be able to start construction the end of October, or excuse me, end of August. So that elevation there was really I get everything you're saying as far as the future buildings, and you know, they're in a conceptual format. This particular project here is actually in full CDs. So that one, I would hope that would be one that you guys could make a motion on, just so that we can.
And if I may add to that, for the board's purpose, this is the first time that they're seeing a proposed change to a downtown building. So regardless of of whomever's decided to work ahead at risk on the design plans and even the construction drawings. We get it. Let's make it happen. Let's move it along. But out of respect for the board, whether they've done that or not shouldn't sway their hand and whether they're ready to make a decision. I'll leave it up to the board, but I think we should premise that, they'll still need to make sure that they fully had an opportunity to vet the project. Now, that said, for TCBC's relocation to building number 3, do you see, I'm not aware that is there a change on the front elevation? Because I don't think the CrossFit has the patio up front. Are you not going to have a patio up front, just the one on the side in the corridor?
Just the one on the side. So it's just that side elevation there.
Got it. Okay. I think we could leave that up to the board. I mean, we certainly, Pam and I have looked at the east elevation. Sorry, I'm just making people dizzy here with all of this Google Street View. But, that said, if it were asked to staff, do you support an elevation change on the side? I think, Pam, I need to defer to you. Do we have any comment from Woody? Is this an emergency access point for any purpose that I need to be aware of? I don't have comments from the city engineer who's overseeing basically overseeing the development of downtown.
No, I don't have any comments from Woody. We received the plans pretty late and he was not able to review it. That's why we felt we would bring it to the board more for comments than for approval. Yeah.
Pretty late. What does pretty late mean? Late in the week, late in the day, or late whatever?
This week. We received them this week. They were sent Monday. I looked at them Tuesday.
Okay, thank you.
Can I make a quick comment too? I want to also say that, I think this is really exciting. I think it's awesome. I think, I'm in general and definitely in support of pretty much everything you're proposing. I would let the applicant know, I don't think, in the 3 years I've been doing this, I don't think any commercial application that's come through, it's very rare that it does get approved in the first time. So, if it doesn't get through tonight, it's just know that it's fairly typical for this to take 1 or 2 sessions. That's probably not going to make you feel any better, but it is kind of, I don't know if the other board members would support me on that, but that seems to be kind of the way it tends to happen.
Right. And I understand that and respect that as well. Just with TCBC being under the gun for the relocation and being out of business during that time, hence the fast track for getting the documents done. Because essentially,
so if I may, from a staff perspective and a procedural perspective, I'm curious as to was it just basically they were not aware that there was a review process besides pulling a building permit? I mean, because if these plans have clearly been engineered and spent time, I know how long it takes to do a full set of engineered drawings. Did they just forget? Or I'm curious, I just need to understand that there's a design review board and there's a ordinance requirement for development to come to the board for a recommendation. So I just, I totally get that they're in a hurry, but there's a process, and that's, we've had the plans now. This will be, I think, the end of day 4. And, just reiterating that so the board doesn't feel their hands are being led here.
And actually, if I could add the TCBC, whatever, those plans were just received Wednesday morning for the new patio and garage door opening.
Now, one thing for the applicants, and I believe I apologize, I'm not referring you to by name. I'm not placing your name. The brewery will recognize that they should consider getting their use permit in place for this use in this new building, which does go to the city council. Proceeding at risk on the construction of the building is certainly something that they could do, but there is a use permit requirement for the brewery use.
Okay.
They've had one. I know that because they know they've gotten one before. They've even had it renewed. There was zero concern that I'm aware of at the time. I mean, Board Member Romack can probably have better memory as also a member of the council if there was any concern on it. It's also an item that's not on tonight's agenda, but it's just a reminder of another process that occurs as part of getting them to legally operate there, which again, let's move it along, get the application in, because Pam will have more substantive noticing requirements by statute that she has to follow than just a design review board application that goes on an agenda.
Right.
So, but we're here to help you with that.
I appreciate that. Yeah, so no, there was not something, just to answer your question of, did they not know the process? We met with the city, the owner and I met with the city 2 months prior to the project. So we were under extreme time crunch when we actually told them and we're proposing the garden. We actually met with Woody and city manager and Pam and Mary and proposed the change. And, creating documents do take time. So that's why we were hustling to get them done. So the guys were working their booties off to get that done in hopes that we can still make the timeline of the grand opening of December 1st for TCDC. So yes.
So can you clarify, are they currently filed and under review with the city's building department?
Negative. We were under the impression that we had to pass design review prior to submitting for construction documents. So if that is not the case, then we would love to be able to submit and run concurrently. We just didn't want to miss this meeting, be pushed back a full month for DR, and then have to do our CD submittal for permits after that, which would then push us into receiving construction documents for our permit documents to be able to start construction to, October, which basically throws the whole thing,
Right, and until you're on the agenda tonight and you're in a public meeting right now, so you have the opportunity and you're receiving it now to get substantive comments from the board if they have any concerns with the proposal to bring the brewery, and in particular, it's not the brewery. They don't have a concern with the use. That really falls under P&Z and council through that use permit. But if they have any concerns to any proposed changes to the front elevation, if that exists with this, proposal, and then the proposed changes to the corridor over here to do that roll-up door and enclose, I think you called it a beer garden, to have the beer garden there. Those would be the comments you'd really should listen to in preparation for your, a September agenda where they may take action, unless they choose to take action tonight.
Is the only change on the east side of the building?
Yes, it is. And it was submitted as its own separate submittal for the docket. So it did not go on with the master plan of the new 2 freestanding buildings. It was actually submitted as its own project for this meeting.
Okay.
Separately.
And so it looks like there's like a pass-through window, a door, and then a garage door that would roll up.
Correct.
Okay.
And are you enclosing that breezeway though?
So the breezeway will be enclosed off from the public with wrought iron fencing. The back side of the building as it stands itself would obviously act as the barrier, but then the front side of the facade would have a wrought iron facade that would close that breezeway off. And then on the back of the building as well, there'll be a wrought iron enclosure, so it's not open to the parking lot.
If I may, from staff, since we don't have a recommendation on the item, whether it's split apart from the larger development of the building 5 and redevelopment of 2 and 3, we do need to see the details of what wrought iron materials you're using, where they're connecting to these walls to seal it off, what other furnishings are occurring to this area that is now currently open to enclose it. Broadly speaking, again, I think staff's found that this is a really cool idea. We need to see a little bit more detail there. And if you're at pre-construction stage, you're going to have to select it at some point in the very near term. And, you may already have that because you're going to need to tell a contractor how he's going to build it. But I think it would be beneficial to the board with this being a downtown project. These are the details that they would like to see in downtown projects. And that's been discussed for many years as we looked at the city center project, which is immediately across the street. So I would just say, let's talk about what the site plan looks like. It looks like Urban Rebuild is your architect. If they could provide us a detailed drawing of what this patio area, what this wrought iron is going to look like, what other site furnishings you are proposing, this could really just help make this decision in staff's opinion.
Madam Chairman. I don't know where she is.
Can anybody hear me? I had to drop out. Can anyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. I'd like-
Okay, sorry about that. My laptop battery just died and I couldn't, so I just called in. So we're standing now whether the applicant is asking us to approve part of the submittal, or is the consensus that we just need to again put this on and continue it to the September 3rd meeting?
Chair, you know what, I have an idea, if I may propose it to the board in the interest of
Yes.
of not appearing to kind of getting in the way. Because of the east elevation facing into the courtyard, it's not directly facing the street. And even looking at the east elevation, it looks like something that we would generally desire at downtown. It's bringing storefront to a broad face wall that has no storefront, right? It's bringing activity into the courtyard, which is part of the city center's design guidelines. I would suggest if the board would like to take a motion on just this aspect of the plan, I think it could be supported to allow them to move forward with their building plan review, because I'm not seeing an issue with the building itself. I'm more concerned about what's happening with the site design of the courtyard area, where the railing is going to go, what the materials are going to be. But we could bring that aspect of this back to the board, because they're not going to be under construction anytime soon. They're going to be in building plan review. So this would allow the project schedule to proceed as the applicant sought. And at the same time, we have the security, if we can talk about site furnishings on September 3rd. And then the whole other aspect of the downtown project, I think, that just needs more detail, and we can get that back as well for September 3rd.
Okay. Did all the board members catch that? Would someone like to propose a motion?
Yeah, I would propose a motion based off of what Jason just mentioned. I think we should approve it with what we can.
Basically, we're approving the east wall.
Correct.
Remodeling of it, and then with the understanding we'll see the rest of the courtyard details at the September 3rd meeting.
Yes.
Okay. So I guess that's a motion. Did I hear a second?
Yeah, I'll second it, John.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, any opposed? Okay, so I guess that's our approval to go forward with that east elevation for now, and then we'll see the rest of the details on September 3rd, and that should allow you to proceed to plan review for permitting.
Wonderful. Thank you guys very much. That's awesome.
Okay. Let's see. I can't pull up the rest of my stuff now. So what's next on the agenda is just minutes. Is that correct?
Yes.
Pam?
That is correct. And it's from the June 4th meeting.
Okay. Would someone like to propose a motion to approve the minutes?
I move we approve the minutes from the June 4th meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and then next on the agenda, I'm guessing it's current events?
Current events.
Yes.
Certainly. Staff can give just a brief update on current events. Thank you, Chair and board members. As you may be aware, and I don't want to steal any of Mr. Romack's thunder if he wants to share the speaking of City Center, the park was on for review last night with the council. My understanding the plans are beautiful. I personally haven't had a chance to review them. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I'm sure UPS Group cranked out something very nice. There's been a lot of guidance on how that should look. We've had some years of practice and prepping for that. So it's good timing. So we're excited to hear about that. Another item that's up, you may have heard, Sun Health's large rezoning case is proceeding to planning and zoning advisory board next month for their first public hearing. They've had a series of study sessions over the last 4 years and resubmittals and kind of stop starts, and they're ready to move forward. So we are pending several items for that case. So there are numerous exhibits on file in their development plan booklet, but staff has requested a couple of additional exhibits that we believe are necessary prior to taking the position on the project. But our anticipation is that they'll go to a special meeting at the end of August, and then they'll be moving on to council in September. So that's those are the big items. A couple other things you should know. Denny's is proceeding on the Dysart and Camelback piece. You have reviewed and approved it. There became an issue with parking because there was no shared parking agreement for that center, which is usually typical for commercial. And so parking calculations were dramatically different for that Denny's restaurant, but in the absence of shared parking, and they were not able to meet it. So the project almost went away, but they were able to secure shared parking with the CubeSmart storage facility, which has excess parking in front. We're anticipating any moment that they'll get that shared parking agreement to us, and they will proceed on to the building department so that they can pull permits and build the Denny's. Lastly, we have a pre-application filed for the vacant parcel that's between the Dignity Health and the AutoZone. It appears to be kind of a broker spec package of a site plan with dual drive-throughs on it. It's a lot of drive-throughs on a little site. We'll see what happens with it, but drive-throughs, as you can imagine, are hot right now. Even before COVID, they were popular. In COVID, they're even more popular because you can do Uber Eats and have the food picked up for you, or you can go in the drive-through and you never have to go inside and you don't have to cook. So drive-throughs are really popular. So we'll be seeing them in the next week and a half, and that may materialize into a design review board case for you. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. I guess then it's board members with any current events.
I'll just give you a short rundown on the new park and the new development in town. We got a long and detailed presentation from EPS who has done the design work for the park, but more than that, they have the roundabout at Village Parkway coming into the new development. We have two choices as far as roadways going north and south, whether we do them as a roadway or not. The entrance coming into Litchfield Park is going to be dramatic, and it's going to be there's going to be involved, as Pam can attest to, I'm sure. But it's a really exciting time. There's going to be like an outdoor amphitheater there. There's going to be lots of seating for people to go into the local restaurants or whatever and get their gelato and come out and sit in the park. Plenty of room for festivals and whatever in the park. And then a lot of history. Paul Litchfield has designed a tower, and there is a space for that. There's a carousel, so there's a space for that. There's just a whole plethora of things going on there, and it's really fun to look at and fun to watch it hopefully come into fruition. That's all.
Board Member Womack, if I may ask, was it clarified by the council whether the park and its design, being that it's nearly purely aesthetic in terms of site design, landscaping, architectural details, etc., would it come to the design review board, or would the board like a courtesy introduction of those plans? I'd be happy to present on behalf of staff next month.
I think that would be a good idea, Jason. It just out of respect for our committee right here. I think it would be, especially now that, it's just good timing with the adjacent development that's pending these applications. Right. You can start to continue to see the totality of what's happening immediately nearby. Well, I think that it would also help, the totality of what's going on the existing buildings right there on Honeysuckle. We weren't, at least personally, I wasn't aware of that development. So I think that would be a good interaction between the council and design review. Great. We'll make sure we bring it on September 3rd.
I would like to add that if anyone is interested, that council meeting, you could watch the council meeting on the city's YouTube channel. If you access the agenda on the city's website, it gives you the link to go to the city's YouTube channel, and if you're interested, you can view that council meeting where this was discussed.
That's next Wednesday, or was it
No,
past
it was
Wednesday?
held already last.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's where the report was that we got from EPS regarding the design work they've done for the park.
Yes.
That's great. No, it would be nice to see it. I'm not sure if we're going to be required to review or approve it or not. I don't know how that's working yet.
I think the park went through the RPG commission. I think they're the ones that reviewed it.
It's city-owned property. It's at the discretion of council if they want, input from the design review board. I don't think anyone specifically did not want the input. I think we could bring it and comment, but since it's not private development, it typically would have to come before the board.
Okay. Any other current events anyone wants to share? Okay. I guess that's all that's on the agenda, right, Pam?
That's it.
Okay.
That's
So
enough.
motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody, and good night.
Good night.